For the record, I don't hate sports games. It's just that most of them don't really do anything for me, and when you're talking about old ones, well, they tend to be more historically interesting than fun to play. The reason I'm bringing this up is my reaction to World Beach Volley isn't based on, get all of this sports ball stuff off my shoot-'em-up system. I am genuinely horrified that something like this was considered to be acceptable for release. The developer of World Beach Volley was Micro Factory, a developer who made a grand total of 4 games, and this was their first console game. Their first game was Cosmo St. Leza for the PC-88, a quirky science fiction RPG so obscure I can pretty much guarantee that more people have now seen images of it because of this video than in the previous 30 years. It's a real game that only exists to appear on lists of games that exist. Their second game was World Beach Volley, which I'll talk about in a few seconds. And then their third game was the only one they made that met any success, as it was the Arabian-themed action RPG Exile. Not the PC Engine version of Exile, which I'll cover in a year or so. I'm talking about the Mega Drive port of Exile, which was a perfectly acceptable Ys 3-inspired slash-em-up. And finally, there was Dynamite the Las Vegas, with Dynamite spelled incorrectly. A casino game, the last refuge of the wicked. But not the Wicked Phenomenon, that was their previous game. So Micro Factory wandered onto the PC Engine, released a single game, and then got out quickly. You have 2 options when you start up World Beach Volley: play and tournament. Basically, tournament's the campaign where you play matches against different countries until you beat all of them. And play is where you go if you just want to match up a few people. When you choose to play, you've got your pick of all the players around the world. So 4 players each from 6 different countries. Every player selects who they're going to control, initially. That part gets a bit messy. You can press button 1 to bring up their stats, and adjust them freely if you really want to. Once you've got your character picked out, then you pick the character that's going to be your teammate, and then the 2 opponents. Now that if you're playing on your own, these characters are all labeled C2, 3, and 4. And then if you're not playing the tournament, you get to choose what surface you're playing on, because why would you play beach volleyball on a beach? You've got your choice of grass, clay, or sand. Supposedly it affects how the players move and if they get tired on the court, but I didn't notice any difference while I was playing. Button 1 strikes the ball, button 2 jumps, and that's all the controls. And at this point, if you're watching the video instead of just listening to it, you're going, oh, YouTube's crapping out again. But au contraire, mon frère, that is actually how the players in World Beach Volley move. It's really bad. Characters move in spurts, jumping from point to point, and movement can either be a slow walk, a kind of medium speed movement, or a sudden dash. Which one you get? Well, you'll just have to push in a direction and find out. And then there's returning the ball. There's 2 significant problems with returning the ball after your opponent knocks it back over the net. The first and most obvious, to get it out of the way, spikes can sometimes be really fast. And I mean really fast. The fastest were about 3 frames between when the player struck the ball and when the ball hit the ground. And this game is playing at 60 frames per second. Not that you can tell by looking at the players moving, but watch the ball. The other problem is that you switch who you're controlling every time the ball passes over the net. Okay, not every time the ball passes over the net. More like 80% of the time when the ball passes over the net. And the inconsistency there isn't even the biggest problem with that. Think about it this way. You have to move the player that you're controlling into position to attempt to block the ball. When the ball's coming down and the opponent's about to strike it, you need to jump up and prepare your own counter hit, taking into account that the ball could go hurtling past you at half the speed of sound. That's not a joke, by the way, I did the math. Okay, your opponent's up in the air, you're up in the air, the ball is struck, You're ready to time your counter-strike perfectly, and then suddenly control flips to the other character. You aren't focused on them, so you might not even know where they were positioned, since the computer's just going to make them wander around a bit. And in that split second after the ball is struck, and before it hits the ground, you need to switch your thinking to the other character, guide them to the point where the ball is going to hit, and then get the ball back in the air. Now, not every spiked ball is coming across the net with the same kinetic energy as a bullet from a 30-06 rifle. Again, I did the math. But even in the case where the ball might be reasonably returnable, the potential random flip-flopping of controls makes doing that way harder than it should be. You really need to just be controlling one character, and that's it. What they've done here is make a big mess. Now, the brightest spot in World Beach Volley is that the art is actually kind of decent. I mean, I get the impression that whoever drew it was really into muscular guys, and hey, I'm glad they got what they wanted in the game. It did bother me, however, that they've got those lovely portraits for every character, and the faces of the players on the court don't match at all. Bald guys have hair, bearded guys have their beards vanish, women get completely different colored hair. It's a situation where they did some nice pixel art, I wish they could have used it a little bit better. If you really wanted World Beach Volley on the go, IGS ported it to the Game Boy. They called it World Beach Volley 1991 Cup when released in Japan, and 1992 Cup in Europe. That version actually plays significantly better, so maybe that's the one to go with if you really wanted volleyball. Like all of the minor sports games on the PC Engine, World Beach Volley seems to have just vanished down a hole. I could only find one person with anything to say about it, and of course they hated it. And on the other hand, the Game Boy game seems to be pretty well liked. World Beach Volley was the second volleyball game on the PC Engine, and that first one was programmed by notoriously awful game developer Micronix. Well, Micronix has found somebody that they can look down on with Microfactory, because this is much worse. It is possible to get into a rhythm where you can play a bit of beach volleyball here, but why would you want to? This game just feels bad to play. I can't believe I'm saying this, but play the Micronix game instead.